let's do it. I would like to formally welcome you to the Humanists of Greater Portland meeting today. We've been entertained by Pete and Paul and Mike, and there's going to be one more song following some beginnings of our meeting. I want to thank all the people that worked hard to make this program available to you today. There's so many behind-the-scenes folks. HGP believes strongly in freedom of speech, but the views expressed by myself, our musicians, today's speaker, our members, and our guests at today's meeting are not the official views of the Humanists of Greater Portland. Before we begin, though, just a quick definition. What is humanism? Humanism is a secular, reason-based approach to life that holds all humans worthy of compassion, dignity, and opportunity. Regardless of origin or creed, we believe morality is intrinsic to our shared humanity, not handed down from above. I would now like to introduce our final song, which we're going to have, I think, words to project.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accepted that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone. And the times they are changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide if a chance will come again. Don't speak too soon, for the wheel still will spin. There's no telling who is leaving, for the loser now will be later to win. And the times they are changing. Some senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a bottle now outside and it's raging. I'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are changing. Mothers and fathers throughout the land, don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are changing. The line it is drawn and the curse it is cast. Slow one will now, but later be past. And the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last. For the times they are changing. For the times they are changing.
Oh, guys, thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. And you're going to join in the singing towards the end of our program, but right now I'm going to introduce our wonderful speaker today. I'm so thrilled that she is here and is taking the time on a Sunday of her busy schedule to come speak with us. I'd like to now introduce our speaker, Multnomah County Commissioner Megan Moyer, who represents Multnomah County District 1. Her district includes the west side of the Willamette River, the inner east side, and the western incorporated portion of this county. Dr. Moore, you're pretty impressive. I mean, yes. Let me Let me tell you a little bit about some of the things she's done before she was a commissioner. Prior to winning her commissioner seat in November of 2024, Commissioner Moyer worked as a public policy specialist for the National Parents Teacher Association, where she lobbied Congress on multiple child-related issues. She has also worked as the senior political organizer and policy strategist for the Service Employees International Union Local 503. She represented home care workers and child care providers and also she has worked as the director of public policy for Disabled Rights Oregon. In that role, she fought to expand access to mental health services for our communities, access to a full day school day for children with disabilities, and the rights of people with disabilities to self-determination. You are there for the underdog, aren't you? Megan is a native Oregonian who lives with her wife and 2 boys in Southwest Portland. Thank you so much for being here today. She'll be doing a short program and then taking questions from the audience. Thank you for being here. I just really looking forward to your program. You're something else, girl.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about myself, but you already did. So I appreciate that. That's very kind. But I'll tell you a little bit about me personally, because I think it explains a lot of how I got to where I'm at and why I focus on the things that I do in office. I grew up in Salem, the youngest of 3 girls. And I grew up Catholic and went to Catholic grade school. But I went to public middle school and high school. I was different from my sisters. And I think that everybody, I think every family, you think you're different from everyone else. But I grew up with a severe learning disability, which I still have. And that was a huge challenge when it was pretty early in the understanding of learning disabilities. And I was really fortunate that my mother worked for the school district and really understood that I was a smart kid, but that I needed a different approach and that some things were just gonna always be really hard for me. And so she really helped me understand that I couldn't let other people define what I was capable of. And I think that has influenced a lot of my life. I then came out as gay when I was 18, 19. And that was a difficult experience for me. I was at a Catholic college at the time, and that went poorly. And so I transferred. And it was a situation in which it was also difficult for my parents. And so they were going through their own acceptance process, and I was leaving their alma mater because it was not a supportive environment for me, and that was hard for them. And so I had to start making choices for me that other people didn't understand or agree with. And I think that has formed a lot of my view when it comes to, how we relate with each other and what our roles are in community with each other. And, I think it has helped me be somebody who has a pretty humanist view of the world, which is that I don't view humans, and I am horrified when people view humans in a hierarchy, that we are all equal to each other, and we don't know what another person has walked through. And that the best we can do for each other is to hold everyone with a level of compassion and understanding and grace as we have needed in our lives. And so I think that led me to wanting to spend my life working on issues that I felt were addressing injustices, specifically toward marginalized communities, all different kinds of marginalized communities. It led me to the labor movement. It led me to the disability rights movement. It led me to the gay rights movement. It led me toward racial justice work and immigration justice work, because I really struggle with watching injustice, and it is a well-organized apparatus. I think that's what some people don't always see. I wish it were random. I think it can play out in random ways, but I don't think its existence or its perpetuation or, frankly, its funding is random in any way. I think it is intentional and benefits some people. And that has been kind of part of my passion. Is I believe overwhelmingly, most human beings are good people. But I do think that we have a human nature of being able to be scared by things, and that has been used against humans as a way of dividing and oppressing and exploiting. And so, I started my career with the belief, and I still have this belief, that the existence of government is a social contract by definition. I was a poli-sci major. I got super into social contracts and what it is and why do we form governments and what is their purpose and how has that been exploited, or how has it been really beneficial? And so I believe in government. I really believe the government has the potential to do tremendous good, because collective action is exponentially more powerful than individual action. I think that also explains my time in the labor movement, because I also believe that collective action can give voice to people who don't have the resources to have voices on their own. And so as I looked at things that I felt really strongly were not right or fair or equitable, I focused, although not exclusively, I have spent a tremendous amount of time on policies related, commonly called human services. It's everything from healthcare to childcare to child welfare to services for seniors and people with disabilities, because I think that that's such a reflection of who we are as people. How we treat each other at vulnerable times is really a reflection of our inner souls, not the people who need government. So, I'll be honest, I think we're failing pretty bad. I do sometimes have moments where I'm like, thank God I'm in my bubble, but our bubble's not perfect. And it is cracking under a lot of external and some internal pressure, but it's still there, and it's worth fighting for, and it's worth saying this narrative that a compassionate approach of sharing responsibility for one another does work. This narrative that we're being sold, that we're all in it alone and everybody's out to get each other, is not true. And it serves a purpose. It serves to protect the greed of the very few. And they want you to believe that we don't care about each other, and they want you to believe it can't get better, and they want you to think government is wasteful and doesn't accomplish anything, because then you won't expect more of them. And I don't think they want it to go bad, but I also don't think they care if it does, because they've got theirs. And they use things like racism and, union busting and all the things that help them have more. I mean, I think it is a fact that we do not have universal health care in this country because of racism. I mean, that to me, there's no other logical explanation why we don't have universal health care except for racism. We don't have strong labor unions because of racism. I mean, racism is a brilliant strategy if you want to continue to exploit working people. Divide them against each other and blame one of them, and you can keep them all down. So as I went through my life, and I loved being an advocate, it's, I may do it again at some point in my life. Some people call it being a lobbyist. I chose advocate. I was like, I never made much money. So I think when people called me a lobbyist, I was like, yeah, for no money and causes. But I believed in it because I knew that it worked. There's nothing that I think is going on is random. Corporations do not spend millions of dollars on politics and lobbyists for no reason. It works. It does. It absolutely works. And it's not some of it's corruption and some of it is just, I'm going to be able to dominate the time around these decision makers. And I'm going to be me and the people I pay are going to be the only voices that you hear. So as a professional lobbyist, you literally spend every day, I mean, if you're any good, you spend every day in the Capitol constantly trying to interact. So I felt compelled that regular people needed somebody there every day who was there to remind them of the people who are at work or can't come or have little kids and, who don't have the ability to be in an echo chamber that elected bodies often are in. And so I did that for a long time. Loved it. Had so many fun, challenging, sometimes heartbreaking fights for things that I felt so deeply about. I once tried to go just get a real job and make some money, and I realized I'm too ADHD to not have the deep caring motivation. So in order to actually want to do a job, I had to care. So I went back to being a lobbyist for Disability Rights Oregon. And it really was that job that led me to run for office because I got so much deeper than I had ever been. I had spent some of my career on disability related issues, a lot of things related to making sure people had access to Medicaid, people got the supports they need, but I had not ever been in a organization that I had felt really encompassed this idea of what it means to fight for human dignity. And this, and I had to question some of my own flawed views. I always considered myself a disability rights advocate as somebody who experiences disability, but it wasn't until I really spent time with individuals with developmental disabilities and individuals with severe persistent mental illness and had the opportunity to build personal relationships and understand what their experiences were and how the system just categorically did not view people with disabilities as equal human beings. To the degree today, and Oregon's better than most states, people with disabilities, significant disabilities who need government assistance often do not choose where they live. They are often denied access to having meaningful relationships. People with developmental disabilities are not perpetual children. They are adults, and they experience all human emotion, and yet they are treated as if they are children. People get their basic rights taken away from them because they have a diagnosis, regardless of actual competence to make decisions. And it really impacted me because I was learning around my own bias, which I try to do in many areas of my life, but that was one that hit me a little harder than I had anticipated because I thought I was woke. And then I was like, oh, am I? and I spent some real time hearing about things like how broken our mental health system is. And I was like, well, tell me about it. I know we're getting horrible outcomes. I can look at data. This is poor. And, we're quite literally the worst state in the nation for our behavioral health system. So I was like, yeah, no, tell me about it. I want to learn. I'm a policy person. It's my job to go fight for these things. And so, I talked to advocates, I've talked to organizations, I've talked to providers, which is nothing like talking to people who experience it. And it radically changed my view. Not that I ever thought that we were doing a good job, because I didn't, but I was horrified to really dig in to how inhumane our approach is. And not only is it inhumane, it's profoundly ineffective. And it's getting worse. I can't believe that I'm saying that. It is actively getting worse in Oregon. And so I just reached a point where I was listening to unbelievably draconian ideas about how to solve homelessness, but particularly unsheltered homelessness. That was just like, one, these are human beings. Two, we're not talking about what's going on. Over 50% of people in our shelters on any given night have a pre-existing diagnosis of severe persistent mental illness. Over 50%. So we don't just have a homeless crisis, we have a behavioral health crisis that's 50 years in the making. This is what happens when you don't have a community behavioral health system. This is it. And so, I saw Metro Region pass the supported housing measure, which I thought was fantastic. I was so excited that we were willing to tax ourselves to do this. And then I saw everything just become this fight, and people being frustrated, which is fair. I think that's fair to be frustrated with how everything is going. But nobody was saying, because there's an untreated behavioral health crisis, I don't know how you solve chronic homelessness if you don't help people who are experiencing these illnesses, and they are illnesses. So as a Medicaid nerd, because I have spent a tremendous amount of my career deep in the weeds on Medicaid, I was like, I got to run. I got to run because this is actually fixable and people think it's not. And there are ways to do it that will actually be for our community and for the state cheaper, because people don't know the amount of money we spend on failed strategies or very, very temporary approaches. So I went to my boss and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do something a little wacky. I'm going to run for county commissioner. And he was like, why would you do that to yourself? And I was like, I really think we can fix this thing. And so that is why I ran. And I ran because specifically there are programs that the state offers to people with disabilities that I have spent my career fighting for. And the state was illegally not providing those same services to people with severe persistent mental illness, which violates federal law. I know, because I helped write our state long-term care plan. So I'm well aware of what the law says, and I'm very aware that what the state is doing is illegal. And I knew that that was a huge piece of what we needed. Is there are individuals who are so sick that they cannot be successful in permanent supported housing. It's about 9% every year. Their needs exceed our highest level of service in homeless services. They need the higher level of care that we provide to other individuals with disabilities who are equally eligible. So to me, that's an absolute moral failing. There are people in crisis who cannot take care of very basic needs, and we know it. We can't even house them because they can't take care of basic needs, and yet we're not enrolling them in Medicaid long-term care. So that has been a huge chunk of my fight. First, I had to spend about a year convincing my colleagues in the county that I was in fact right, that the state breaking the law, and it is costing the county as well as the city and everybody else, because it has rippling impacts. And so we have been on a letter writing campaign to the governor, gotten a little bit of press on it. I think it will start getting more, pointing out that, hey, your breaking the law is hurting people, and it's hurting us and our ability to help them. So we're in a back and forth with the state. They admit that they do need to expand these services, but they want to do a work group, and we're work grouping it. Which I'm not patient enough person for this. But the pressure continues, and now it's not just me. It's every commissioner and the chair and our staff are totally on board. And now we're moving it up to Metro, and we're having a whole conversation with Metro and Clackamas County and Washington County, how we all have to put pressure to fix some of these problems, and we have to have the state cooperate related to behavioral health. And so I am seeing glimmers of light. I'm not a patient person when it comes to these things, because I don't like the bend in the arc of change. I want to like break it to change. And sometimes that is my approach. It doesn't always make me everyone's favorite person. But I am really proud of the fact, and I have dumped my staff into the deep end of the Medicaid ocean, neither of which my chief of staff and my policy director, who's actually here, come from a Medicaid background. And I'm like, hey, guess what? You're going to get super technical, and we're going to write these letters that are like, 1915J will do this and this, and I will do that. I'm like, nobody follows that. But I'm like, but we have to do it because we got to get technical on this. And they're helping me talk about it in a less nerdy way, and we're getting there. But it's a beginning, and it's not just about, are we expanding services to, probably it's a couple thousand people or more, but it is our most acute individuals. But it is also helping with a conversation about how we approach these issues, because right now, and it is heartbreaking when people ask me, they know I have a background with behavioral health and policy and our system. And they ask me like, I have a loved one, what should I do? And those are the most heartbreaking conversations, because it's horrible out there. I can tell you what you should do. I can also tell you it's not available. It's not. I'm going to tell you that you're going to call and knock on doors for your loved one that are just not open. And the reason they're not open is because we don't provide services to people with severe mental illness until they've been arrested. And what we provide is not actual real mental health care. If you get a slot in a community-based mental health program, that's equivalent to winning the lottery. That is how almost impossible it is. So if you're somebody who experiences your 19-year-old son has their first psychotic break, they are hospitalized, they're coming out of hospitalization, they're telling you need all this follow-up care. There is one evidence-based program actually internationally, because it wasn't even developed in the United States, that can so significantly improve your loved one's outcome. We have 100 slots in Multnomah County, period. That's it. It's called ESA. It's an amazing program. It should be standard of care. Good luck. Good luck getting into that. If you're somebody who needs a higher level of engagement to be able to meet your basic needs, you have trouble remembering appointments, going to take care of just rent and all those basic things. Intensive case management, total no-brainer. It's not universally available. It's probably available to about 2% of people who qualify. Like, we know what we need to do, and we don't do it. But then We wait till people get so ill that they either are arrested or they need to be involuntarily committed, which is trauma. Like people think it's not traumatic. Think about if you were not knowing what's going on and somebody physically takes you and straps you down and you're basically have to wait. Right now, it's probably about 10 days before you're actually admitted to a psychiatric ward. So you're chemically and physically restrained in a hallway for days until you get a bed, because we don't have enough, because again, we did nothing to prevent anyone from getting this sick. Then you still don't know what's going on and you're angry and you're confused and you go through this sham of a court process. The 99% of people who go through are committed. And then you begin treatment. But at this point, there's a lot of trust lost with the people who were involved getting you there. And hopefully that treatment brings you to hopefully a state in which you can be independent. That's not always possible. We're not always able to restore people to full capacity. And then unless you are so lucky that you had a family member who could spend a ton of money, you're discharged back to homelessness. That's what we do. And you want to know what that, just 1 month of that care costs? $96,000, all state dollars, because feds won't pay for that. We just spent $96,000 of state money for a very temporary solution. Could have had long-lasting benefit if there was that follow-up and that support, but we don't do that. So we just spent $96,000 on somebody, plus the court, plus their lawyer, plus the whole thing that got them there. Within 6 months, they're likely to decompensate. That is a massive waste of money. I don't want to talk about a state hospital and what a mess that is. But that is our mental health system. That's it. And, and everyone's like, I have actually had people that I am close to press charges on their adult children in order to get them something. That is wrong. That is a completely broken system. That you have to wait until somebody commits a serious enough crime that they are then sent to the state hospital, or maybe restored, for the sole purpose, I think people don't realize this, the sole purpose is to prosecute you, not to get you ready to be more independent, not to live the best life you can. The goal is prosecution. We spend in the state of Oregon the majority of our mental health money restoring people to be prosecuted. It's wild to me. So I am in this fight because it's not just we can do better, everyone else does better. Like, I don't understand it. Is it an Oregon thing? It's certainly an American thing, where like we don't think we can look at places where it's working and apply any lessons at all. Like, oh, somehow we've got to like create new things. No, we don't have to. It's actually been done. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't come up with what works. I like research. I like learning about things. And it's like, well, if everyone does it better, I bet there's a lot of things out there we can do. And we can. And we can save money. But the fight that we're having, and I think it is a symptom of our culture, is this idea of we can't afford it. We can't afford to help people, or they don't want to be helped, or they're not worthy of help because they committed a crime. They're using drugs. Oh, I'm sorry. If you had a broken behavioral health system, don't you think you'd self-medicate? Like, sometimes we all do self-medicate in our own ways. I absolutely love sugar and caffeine. Should I take my ADHD medicine? I should. Do I sometimes self-medicate? Yes, I do. That is obviously a different extreme, but it's real. And I think part of the reason we are not actively addressing this is because we're not viewing people as equal. We are not seeing the humanity in each other. And I can't think of a situation to me that should bring that out, because mental illness does not discriminate by class or race or status of any kind. It is so profoundly unfair. I mean, I do have some personal experience with this. My grandmother was bipolar and was hospitalized several times. And I have other family members who experience mental illness. And I feel like we forget about the humans in this. And it's not just mental illness. I care a lot about that because I think that that's what's going on in our street right now. It's not the only community I think we are not showing love and compassion for. And it's funny, as somebody who grew up pretty Catholic and then left my religion in college, I struggle a lot with the hypocrisy of many people who want to be very loud about their religious views. And I know enough about the book they're talking about and have enough of a Christian education to just be like, I don't understand how you're getting those views from this. I mean, I thought that about my own religion, honestly, but what I'm trying to do as just one person in local government, because I don't want to be president of the United States, and I like my family and want to spend time with them, and don't want to, I mean, I'll be totally honest, I don't want to have to raise a bunch of money, and that's very real if I wanted to, do bigger and better things, I guess. But I am here in this one role because, one, the county is our local mental health authority. Two, the county delivers human services to people, the thing that I care about, the thing I'm passionate about. And we are fundamentally a loving, caring community. So I actually believe, I hope I'm not incorrect, I believe that the will of our people is there. That's not true in every community. Other communities are in different places, but we do have a highly compassionate community, but we're needing the vision, the direction, and some of the nerdy experience. Not, I have my piece of it. I have, colleagues and coworkers who have their pieces of it. And I do believe that that is what government should be, is that we bring together people who want to make change with people who are super knowledgeable. And we say, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to come together. We're going to figure it out. We're going to be honest about what it costs, why it costs what it costs, what has to change, what sacrifices we're asking society to make, what are the benefits that come from it. And I don't want to lose that because I feel like that's under attack. So, I'm not up for re-election, thank God. But there are elections coming up. And, people want me to weigh in and pick people, and I try to avoid that. But I do encourage, and this is my thing that I am trying to say. What your opinion is not enough anymore. We cannot elect people because they checked all the right boxes of oh, you have the views I like. That's not good enough because we're so under attack that we really need to bring people with experience and expertise and passion. You can't just have passion anymore. But you can't only be a technocrat who knows how to do it. So, that is what I'm telling people when they want me to give them a name. I'm like, I'm not going to give you a name because, one, I don't know these people either. But I will say, opinions are not enough. They matter. They absolutely matter. They are definitely helpful for getting a sense of like, do we generally share values? I think that's really important. But the next question is, will they be any good at the job? We are not asking that enough. And I think that that has hurt our effectiveness in fighting back at an incredibly well-funded, well messaged strategy that nothing works. You're killing the economy. Taxing the rich hurts. Everyone's going to move. I've never been so disgusted by a debate in my life as I have been about the attacks on preschool for all. It's disgusting to me. Oh my gosh. If you charge somebody who makes a family that makes over $400,000, again, you're not paying anything until over $400,000. They have to pay 1.4% or there's some variation depending on how much you make. It is destroying our community. No, it's not. I never hear from the people who are just paying it. I hear from the people who have millions of dollars in capital gains who don't want to pay 1.8%. Millions of dollars. When I have a Schnitzer and a Boyle trying to be the face of working people, that's ludicrous. Both of them are Nepo babies. Let's be real. They didn't earn or build any of that. But I don't believe that what they really are worried about is people might move, and that would hurt us. They don't want to pay. So that's a little look into me and why I do what I do and what I think. And I am happy to answer any questions that you have about what's going on or local politics or whatever. I'm open.
Let's start with question number one. Who has number one? Go ahead.
Thanks
John.
for supporting Ground Score Association in your budget as much as you could. I know you couldn't do it completely. But they visited us a month or so ago, and we really found out what they're doing for that other 50% that isn't necessarily handicapped from.
A good percentage of their workforce experiences.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is they focus on getting people into the workforce. And I asked them, what could I ask you? And here's a question from them. How can they ensure and develop workforce development that has been so good in taking people off the streets, helping them clean up the streets and get employment? There's a lot of bureaucratic reasons why, and we don't need to go into the reason, but what can they do more to do the job better from your perspective?
I did support restoring as much as we could because I do think they do a very good job. I think a lot of our traditional employment apparatus expects people to be at a point where they're more ready for long-term employment than I think a lot of people who are actively experiencing homelessness are. If you've been out of the workforce for a long time and you may have had some other struggles that you were experiencing, it's very difficult to go from that to like, I'm ready to go be a preschool teacher and I'm going to go to school. Like if you don't have housing, we're not going back to school. So I am very supportive of low barrier employment, which is like, how do you get that first thing that helps build your confidence? Because I don't know if any of you have ever been unemployed for a chunk of time. I have. It does a number to your self-esteem. And getting to a place where you feel capable again actually takes time. But also it's the support you get, it's the wraparound services, it's having people who are like actively on your team supporting you. I think it's fantastic. There's a funding issue, and it's not unique to employment services. We had to cut $69 million from homeless services. So we cut a lot of things, which was awful. It was an awful thing to do. And so, when people ask me like, how do we avoid getting on the chopping block? And I'm like, you didn't get on the chopping block because you did anything wrong. You got on the chopping block because you're entirely county funded. And if you can find ways to leverage other dollars, it makes it harder for us to cut you. So there are things, I'm like the Medicaid nerd. So there are ways where Medicaid will pay for employment services. It wouldn't pay for everything, but it can pay for the job coaching, the employment navigation, like there's a whole bunch of stuff it can pay for. Does the governor want to do it? No, she doesn't, because it costs money. I'm like, really? But that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, you got to figure out other funding streams. I am like 99% sure that if the state would actually work with us, we could find ways of leveraging federal funding to help organizations like Ground Score.
Get back to them is be more creative in getting alternative funding.
Or, join the county and other organizations in saying, hey, state of Oregon, you need to allow, yes, because we can in fact match our own money with Medicaid. We don't even need state money. We can match our local dollars, so we only would pay a third of the cost. Instead, we're paying 100%, which the money just doesn't go as far. So we have to be able to be really strategic about stretching every dollar, and not every service qualifies, but some employment services do. And those are the opportunities we have to take.
Okay. I have a question from Kurt Mackey over Zoom. Why do politicians resist the movement towards socialized medicine?
I don't know. I'm 100% for it.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how anyone can logically argue against it.
Right.
I don't think people know how close Oregon's healthcare system is to collapsing right now.
Yeah.
Like it should scare you all. We are illegally rationing Medicaid because our system is collapsing. And when the HR1, the big beautiful bill, takes effect, it will bankrupt health systems that are already losing. Like, and don't get me wrong, they had their greedy days. I'm not defending their behavior. We didn't get Randall's Children's Hospital because we needed another children's hospital. We did it so that they could keep their tax-free status. Providence did the same thing for years. We built. Now, the rest of the state didn't have that kind of hospital capacity growth. And so we don't actually have enough hospital capacity, but we are going to lose. We're going to lose hospitals all over this state. We're going to lose health systems all over this state. And I'm going to ask people, all those boogeyman things that you were afraid socialized medicine would create, I'm sorry, how long are you waiting to go see a specialist right now? All those boogeyman things are now, except you're paying through your teeth and some bureaucrat is denying your care.
Right.
At least, God forbid, you wait for an elective procedure for 6 months, which you do here too. In Canada, you're not going to pay that much. It's going to get covered. You're not going to wonder, did they do a lot of diagnostic tests on me because I needed it or because I'm well insured? And why does the doctor who ordered it own part of that machine? Our healthcare system is broken, totally. Yes, universal healthcare.
Yes. Okay. Questioner number 2.
Yeah.
I would like to ask a different question. I am living like in Multnomah County. So my question is, what steps are being taken to ensure that taxpayer dollars for capital projects and housing are being spent efficiently and without massive cost overruns?
It's like you and I are not enough. There is some questionable things.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, here's one that I'm like, Portland Housing Bureau is moving forward on a project. We absolutely need affordable housing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, do we need affordable housing? It's nearly $1 million per unit is the cost. That's ludicrous. I have built low-income housing. That was my foray out of politics. I went into construction. And I, of course, couldn't not do things like affordable housing. That is a ludicrous price per unit.
Yes.
That is irresponsible. Who the heck greenlit that? Drives me crazy. At the county, I every time I see a projected budget for something, I'm like, what are you talking about? An animal shelter, and I believe we need an animal shelter for $86 million. You could buy Big Pink twice for that. It's ludicrous. So we have work to do. It is a big issue, honestly. I don't think we're always the frugal stewards that we need to be. And I think it is so imperative because it is what is used to dismantle our social safety nets, is that we're wasteful and fraud and abuse and all these things. And I have no tolerance for it. Not because I think all government is wasteful. I don't. I think it is a minority of things. But when you have these high profile things, it erodes public trust. So I am passionate about accountability and being responsible for the taxpayers' money because I believe in what we can provide. And it just drives me bonkers.
But you're one person on the commission,
And that is frustrating.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't understand when my colleagues are like, okay with some of these things. I'm like, but I worked in construction.
Right.
That's a ludicrous amount of money for that. And that I'm not saying that as like hyperbole. I literally have done it. That's a ludicrous amount of money. Yes, prices in construction have gone up tremendously. Thank you, tariffs. But not that much.
Okay. Questioner number 3.
Yeah, HGP has many videos on YouTube with speakers addressing homeless issues. Have you checked any of those out, or have you been turned on to any of them?
I have not seen your videos.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yeah, I think I want to get people who have raised many concerns, some of whom have experienced homelessness themselves.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
I did.
Questioner number 4.
yes. Oregon is historically very the worst state possibly in the union for mental health care. What specific changes would you think need to be enacted to get us a little higher up on that list?
Yeah, we passed laws for
Health parity, but we don't have it. That's a joke. We have to invest in long-term supports for people because that's what prevents people from getting significantly worse repeatedly. And I think something that people don't know about some forms of severe mental illness, particularly diagnoses that include psychosis, is that every intensive psychosis episode someone experiences, you can't restore them to where they used to be. So every time we let people cycle, less. So when we're seeing people who are so profoundly unable to care for themselves, to some degree, that was preventable. You're never gonna know or be able to prevent every decompensation, but with services and supports around people, you can cut that to a third or a quarter, which means over their lifetime, they will stay more functional. They will have a higher quality of life. But in addition, we are saving money because right now we are a crisis-driven system. And like heart disease, if you only treat crisis, it will happen repeatedly and it is incredibly expensive. So I don't understand why we think mental illness is different than other illnesses. It plays out in behaviors, and I think that confuses a lot of people, but it is a progressive disease that people need the preventative supports. The earlier you get people the right levels of supports, the better their lifelong outcomes are. But right now, people with severe mental illness die 30 years younger on average.
Right.
Don't tell me it's not a degenerative disease. Yes, it is. But we treat it like it's just episodic crises and there's a magic pill. And yes, for many mental illnesses that include psychosis, medication is an essential part. It's not without incredibly difficult side effects, and I do think people don't realize that. But a pill is not enough to keep people well. You have to have the wraparound services, and with them, people are very successful. So to me, it is a lot of front end, and it's also a conversation about how we're spending money now and being okay cutting some of that in order to fund elsewhere, knowing that you will in fact reduce utilization, which is very hard. I get in debates where people want more hospital beds, and right now we actually do need more inpatient hospital beds, but nobody can tell me that if we built wraparound services, we would actually need those level of beds. So I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's not convincing enough to me that we need to build more hospital beds before we try to prevent the use of hospital beds.
Questioner number 5. Go.
What steps can we take to try and enable you to be more successful, or can we actually contribute to fixing this problem? Hopefully it's not within 50 years, but so it took 50 years to get here. I'm hoping we can get there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, some of it.
Some of it was what motivated me to run is called BS on some of the stuff that's out there. It's not based on reality. Everybody, I got slammed a little bit, whatever, that I don't think civil commitment is the answer to everything. It doesn't mean I don't think civil commitment is necessary. That's involuntary treatment. But it doesn't fix things, because it is a hospital level of care. That's the definition of inpatient care. It's hospital level. So as any of you, if you've ever had to be hospitalized, you didn't go home feeling 100. They dealt with the crisis. They don't deal with the underlying issues. So this idea that if we just civilly commit people, the average civil commitment is 40 days right now. It used to be 30. It's more acute, but it's 40. 40 days does not change the trajectory of somebody's life. It absolutely can bring somebody down from crisis, and it's needed because some people reach a crisis level, but people think it's the answer. It doesn't solve a problem. It turns down the volume on a crisis, but unless we are doing the things to keep people well, they will be back. That the Mac Club bombing was tragic, but the dialogue after it was wildly dumb. Right. Well, we were just going to civilly commit him indefinitely at $96,000 general fund a month when he didn't need that level of care because he might get ill again. Well, how do you prevent that? Eyes on with wraparound services. Somebody would have known. So, that's my approach, is call out what is bonkers, hold electeds accountable. A lot of people want to do this. They're like, oh, there's nothing we can do. That's total not true. Right. But if you don't know, educate yourself. Look at some research. Look at what other states, other areas are doing. To me, I don't understand this, there's nothing we can do. We literally, anything we would do would be better than what we're doing.
Questioner number.
Commissioner, you could also write letters to the governor about
Please.
Medicaid pension. If you want more information, I'll give you a business card. We're happy to give you a easy rundown of a very hard issue.
Yeah, because they don't want caseload growth. I'm like, actually, that's exactly what I want.
If you're on a caseload, guess what that means? You have a case manager.
Yeah.
Do you think this population can go without case managers? No, they cannot.
No.
It's wild to me.
They can't. They
literally, it's unexcusable.
Right. Could you repeat what you just said about letters to the governor, please?
In helping with this issue, which is a very big issue. Of course, we've been doing a lot of research on this, and we'd be happy to provide you a short summary of what's going on and a script, and you could use that script to write to the governor saying, hey, we want to see this change.
And how will we get there?
I'll give you a business card,
We'll connect
expect an email from us.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll work it out.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Question number 6.
So I have 2 questions. I hope that's okay. So one thing that I have learned is that often, you mentioned upcoming elections, often folks who are running for these elections are often cronies of bigger corporations, and they come into those elected positions with some bias. Hence $86 million to build facilities that don't cost that much, that benefit construction companies that build those, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering if you can share if these upcoming elections are for like part-time or full-time positions, what that average salary is, because I think that's pretty indicative of the type of person that's able to apply and hold that position.
Okay, there's your question.
Yeah. So there are both volunteer and full-time. Multnomah County Commissioner is full-time, City Council is full-time. I make $152,000. I think we just got, I think we're at 152 now. I'm not a state legislator because I could not afford that. That's just a fact. There's a lot of good people who can't be state legislators because it's like $40,000 and it's not a part-time job. So, the governor makes 200 something. The chair, Multnomah County, makes about 200. Most like higher level managers make more. City council makes less than Multnomah County, so I think they're like in the high 130s.
Yes.
Companies as well, and that's public record.
Yep. Oregon Government Ethics Commission.
And where do we access that?
Oregon Government Ethics Commission. You can search by name.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there grassroots or mutual aid groups in the area that you feel are doing a good job at being some of the connective tissue that's needed to help with those resources, helping people meet their basic needs?
Oh God, we are so blessed.
Yeah, there are just really amazing organizations. Lift Up is one that's pretty geographically close to here. They do they stock food pantries. They also bring food to homebound individuals, and they also do like cooking classes and other social events for seniors in low-income senior housing. Blanche House, like, oh my gosh, we're so lucky. I'm going to be honest, my critique of the United States is we ask nonprofits to do the work of government.
That's right.
And I don't support
It's
that.
true.
I think that's what taxes are for. And I think nonprofits are wonderful, but we act like it's their responsibility to do things that it's the government's responsibility, and they should be there as, partners, but not carry the weight they carry. And they're breaking. There's too much need. When the federal government cut off SNAP benefits, and that was only like 40 days, we at the county tried to be a convener and put some money in. I mean, you can't make up $18 million. We don't have that. Nobody had it. We put in, I think, 250, Metro put in 500, the city put in, like, we were all like scrounging because of course it wasn't our budget season, so we didn't have pots of money. But the amount that nonprofits were doing to try to fill that void, and it's so many. I mean, I think that's also, it's a lot goes unseen because there was a tiny organization that was delivering food to people who aren't leaving their houses due to ICE. And it's like this woman's garage, and the county's working with her and trying to figure out, because we don't want to know names. We're not going to put anybody on a list. So these people, great. How do we get you food? I mean, that is the level that that's out there. And there are so many great organizations, but they do not have, no nonprofit has the ability to make up for what government is not doing.
Because you're volunteers. Part of it is most of the folks that are working for nonprofits are doing it as a side gig, a few hours a week, maybe. And so they just can't. They can't.
And the amount of unmet need. And I keep trying to tell people, no. These aren't a little bit of need for, somebody who's having a tough time, it's entire socioeconomic classes that can't get by. We are in the most inequitable economy we have ever had since slavery. It's that bad. Income inequality is killing democracy. It is. And this idea that, God forbid, people who are doing really well pay taxes because it would ruin everything. I thought we beat Reagan economics, but apparently we didn't. Because it's alive and well in Portland right now, let me tell you. While people who work full-time can't feed their families.
Right.
That's ludicrous.
That's right. We've got our final question, number 7.
Yeah, simple question. I think I figured out the answer. What is a NOPO baby?
Nepo baby, nepotism.
And you said Schnitzer.
Yes.
And
They didn't build those companies from the ground up. Their grandfathers or their
did. They did not create the wealth in which they have benefited from.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. And don't get me wrong, even if they had, I would have taxed them way more. I mean, I'm not going.
I actively want a wealth tax, but I do not believe I have the votes for that.
And I'm going to ask a question that when you've got a mayor who is closing 24-hour shelters that have wraparound services for just nights, get out at, you get in at 7, you get out at 7 in the morning and wander the streets all day. He's closing the wraparound shelters, 24-hour shelters for these night shelters. I feel like Portland City and Multnomah County are at opposite. How do you deal with that?
It's wildly problematic.
Yeah.
It is. And, I think we either need to say we don't share the same goal. And so, we're going to have a system that the city runs that is about not having tents. I'm going to be
That's true.
blunt. I largely believe that that's what it's about. And I have lunch with the mayor once a month. And his obsession with making sure there aren't tents as the benchmark for success. I mean, every lunch we talk about it. And he feels very good about the success that he has achieved. And if that's your goal, yes, I would say you have had success. The county does not, that is not our definition of success. Our definition is ending homelessness for a person. Not even getting them in a shelter. You are homeless in a shelter. That's why it's called a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Even although it counts, it's not the finish line. Subsidized housing. Unless you are permanently disabled and you need subsidized housing, the goal is still financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. We don't have enough money to do all of that with the amount of homelessness we're experiencing, but we have different definitions of success. So if your goal is, I don't want to see homeless tents everywhere, this city has a more successful approach. If your goal is, I want less people experiencing homelessness, I would argue the county's approach is significantly better.
Agree with you. Commissioner Moore, we've run out of time. I could listen to you forever. I just, the groups I work with, yes, keep up the good work. I'm very proud. We live in District 1, so yeah, keep up the good work. I want to thank you so much.
Where have all the good men gone, and where are all the gods? Where's the streetwise Hercules to fight the rising odds? Isn't there a white knight upon a fiery steed? Late at night I toss and I turn, I dream of what I need. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the end of the night. gotta be strong, and he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the morning light. It's gotta be sure, and it's gotta be soon, and it's gotta be larger than life, larger than life. Do-do, do-do, do-do. Somewhere after midnight, my wildest fantasy. Somewhere just beyond my reach, someone reaching back for me. Racing on the thunder, so they're rising with the heat. Gonna take a Superman to sweep me off my feet. Yeah, I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the end of the night. And he's gotta be strong, and he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the morning light. It's gotta be strong, and it's gotta be sure, and it's gotta be larger than life. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the end of the night. Do-da, do-da, do-da. Up where the mountain meets the heavens up above, out where the lightning splits the sea, I could say there's someone somewhere watching me. Through the wind and the chill and the rain and the storm and the flood, I can feel his approach like fire in my blood. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong, and he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the morning light. It's gotta be sure, it's gotta be soon, it's gotta be larger than life. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the end of the night. It's gotta be strong, and it's gotta be fast, and it's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero, holding out for a hero till the morning light. It's gotta be sure, and it's gotta be soon, and it's gotta be larger than life, larger than life. Or in our case today, she's gotta be larger than life. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for what you do for us. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Now a single word can make a heart open. Might only have one match, make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else leaves, 'cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. Losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. I'm in too deep. Say I'm in too deep. It's been 2 years, I miss my home, but there's fire burning in my bones. I still believe, yeah, I still believe. All those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I've still got a lot of fire left in me. A lot of fire left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. Might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Start right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song, and I don't really care if nobody else leaves, 'cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. I've still got a lot of fight left in me. Thank you, everyone. We've still got a lot of fight left in us.
Through a storm and finally reached a quiet shore. The homeless found a home on Susan's floor. Didn't feel so cold and tired, stretched out before her fire, rolling smokes and drinking up her wine. And I remember candlelight, singing till we could not sing no more, falling warm asleep on Susan's floor. Well, now that my song is sweeter, I think I'd like to greet her and thank her for the favors that she gave. A stranger I came, my head bowed in the rain to her door. I sat and sang my songs on Susan's floor. And in the morning I'd go out, buying kingdoms with my songs, knowing I'd be back in just a while, warming in the sunlight of her smile. Lots of time songs have passed, I catch myself just looking back, reliving all the wonder of those nights. That's where I'd be today if I had only stayed one night more and sang another song on Susan's floor. Like crippled ships that made it through a storm and finally reached a quiet shore. The homeless found a home on Susan's floor. And we're off and running. That was written by Shel Silverstein. Stein.
The sharp eyes, the mind, the right okay. Oh, the sharp eyes with his teeth there, and he shows them. Just a jackknife has my cheese here, and he keeps them outside. bites with this geese dear, and this cloud start to spread. Just a close door, where's my geese dear? So there's not a trace of on a corner lies a body who's alive. Someone followed her to the bottom corner. Little deeded back the night from a corner. I forgot my reading glasses. By the corner, got a crowbar, got it all. Got a corner, got a corner, but you're back in town. Anyway, it's kind of a fun melody, but the song does go on and on and on with the same melody. Schubert does better than that. All right, now back to the good singer.
Song has no ending. That's me, 85 and 85.
Sometimes I find I get to thinking of the past. We swore to each other that our love would surely last. You kept right on loving, I went on a fast. Now I am too thin and your love is too vast. But I know from your eyes, and I know from your smile, that tonight we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. For a while, let's speed it up a little. I choose the rooms that I live in with care. The windows are small and the walls almost bare. There's only one bed and there's only one prayer. I listen all night for your step on the stair. And I know from your eyes, and I know from your smile, that tonight we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. For a while. Oh, sometimes I see her undressing for me. She's a soft, naked lady love meant her to be. And she's moving her body so brave and so free. I've got to remember that's a fine memory. And I know from your eyes, and I know from your smile, that tonight we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. For a while.
Once I had a little dog, his color it was brown. I taught him for to whistle, to sing and dance and run. His legs they were 14 yards long, ears so very wide. Around the world in half a day, upon him I could ride. Now this is the part y'all join in. Sing, tarry all day, sing, autumn to May. And once I had a little frog, he wore a vest of red. He'd lean upon a silver cane, a top hat on his head. He'd sing of far-off places, of things to see and do, and of all the kings and queens he'd met while sailing in a shoe. Here it comes now. Sing, tarry all day, sing, autumn to May. And once I had a flock of sheep, they grazed upon a feather. I kept them in a music box from wind and rainy weather, and every day the sun would shine. They'd run all through the town and bring me back some golden rings and candy by the pound. Sing, carry all day, sing, autumn to May. And once I had a little dove, she was so very frail. She sat upon an oyster shell and hatched me out a snail. The snail it turned into a bird, the bird to butterfly, and he who tells a bigger tale will have to tell a lie.
Should avoid using barrel on leather
Carry all day, sing, autumn to May. One more time. Sing, tarry all day, sing, autumn to May.
Yeah, that one. Now, come on, this is first Sunday, so if you know this, if you don't know this, y'all know this. Sing along.
Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Noble kings and princes would bow wherever they came. Pirate ships would lower their flag when Puff roared out his name. Oh, Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. A dragon lives forever, but not so little girls. Painted wings and giant rings give way to heels and pearls. One great night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. His head was bent in sorrow, green scales fell like rain. Puff no longer went to play along the cherry lane without his lifelong friend. Puff could not be brave, and so Puff, that mighty dragon, he slipped into his cave. Oh,
Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea
and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
I'm thankful for my feelings, even when they get hurt. I'm thankful for my dreaming, even when I know it won't work. I'm thankful for my memories, even when I remember pain. 'Cause there's so many things that I have done that I'll never do again. Now the lady came to see me, my old feelings were still there. She said that she had found someone for whom she really cared. I tried to hide my suffering as I wished her peace and joy. But now all hope is gone, nobody's ever gonna stay with this old boy. But I'm thankful for my feelings, even when they get hurt. I'm thankful for my dreaming, even when I know it won't work. I'm thankful for my memories, even when I remember pain. 'Cause there's so many things that I have done that I'll never do again. You can't stop the world from turning, and it won't always turn your way. So you got to build a philosophy to get you through the longer days. You can't make somebody love you, a promise to be there. So learn to love without demands, and you live without a care. Then you'll be thankful for your feelings, even when they get hurt. You'll be thankful for your dreaming, even when you know it won't work. Just like I'm thankful for my memories, even when I remember pain. 'Cause there's so many things that I have done that I'll never do again. So many roads that I have run that I'll never run again. So there's so many times that I have cried, I don't ever want to cry again. That's why I'm thankful for my feelings, even when they get hurt. I'm thankful for my dreaming, even when I know it won't work. I'm thankful for my memories, even when I remember pain. 'Cause there's so many things that I have done that I'll never do again.
Summer's in around the bend, just flying. Swimming suits on the line, just drying. I'll meet you there for our conversation. I hope I didn't ruin your whole vacation. Well, you never know how far from home you're feeling until you watch the shadows cross the ceiling. Well, I don't know, but I can see it snowing, and in your car the
windows are wide open. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Valentines break hearts and minds at random. That old Easter egg ain't got a leg to stand on. Well, I can see that you can't win for trying. And New Year's Eve was bound to leave you crying. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. The moon and stars hang out in bars just talking. I still love that picture of us walking, just like that old house we thought was haunted. Summer's end came faster than we wanted. Come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home. Come on home. No, you don't have to be alone. Just come on home.